So I'll start with our real-world evidence study that was on Kesimpta. And so really a little background is obviously we've already presented the phase 3 pivotal clinical trial data. Kesimpta was approved, but that's a very sort of structured setting. And so this latest study was an administrative and claims review looking at how folks did on Kesimpta in what we might consider the real world. And so that could be patients who might be naive to therapy, those who are on either lowly or moderately efficacious therapies, and then switching over to Kesimpta. And so what we wanted to see was, did their annualized relapse rate sort of move in the same direction as it did within the clinical trial? So the main findings were that it was actually very, very consistent. And so there were three essentially patient groups that we looked at. Again, those on either low or moderately efficacious therapies as sort of cohort 1 and 2, cohort 3 being the patients that were naive to therapy. And across the board, we saw an overall 79% reduction in annualized relapse rates. The main thing is, sometimes there's pushback in the community to say, well, that worked in a clinical trial. Let's see what happens when you get to patients who are just out there in the community. And I think this is part of that evidence that says to your average clinician, no, it not only works in that very controlled environment, but it can work just about anywhere. And it can work with the same degree of efficacy as we saw in the clinical trials in the real world. So this particular part of the study is over. It was a claims review, and so it's a closed-in study. But what you will see coming up, not necessarily here at ACTRIMS, but maybe at AAN in just a few months' time, is the continued release of the long-term safety data that we have on Kesimpta. And I should say long-term safety and efficacy data. So once you start taking this therapy in that real-world setting, how do things go 5 or 6 years down the line? We reviewed and released 5-year data last year. We're going to have 6-year data this year, and I think you'll see a continued positive trend in that.